Do you believe in eternal love? We want to hear your story. George Clooney, one of Hollywood's most elegant gentlemen, has experienced many ups and downs in his personal and professional life. His 2014 marriage to talented lawyer Amal Alamuddin was admired by the public. However, recently, there have been rumors that the couple is about to divorce after a surprising event. Is there any truth behind these speculations? George Clooney has broken his silence and made a shocking confession. Let's explore the details in the article below. In this video, we'll examine the rumored incident that led to a split in their marriage, as well as the effects of their busy schedules and separation on their relationship and the lives of their twins. The Hollywood leading guy. As the show draws to a close, more details about the Clooney's house will start to emerge. George Clooney was known as Hollywood's ideal bachelor for a long time because he made being single an art form. Clooney was the leading man in Hollywood. His captivating personality, breathtaking good looks, and stellar profession seemed to be the basis for every Hollywood romance. Nothing had altered while it wasn't on show. For Clooney, finding love wasn't a picnic. It was full of famous people's romances and a public vow to never tie the knot again. What then prompted him to reconsider? George Clooney has been romantically involved with some of Hollywood's most stunning and talented women throughout the years. His exes include a who's who of Hollywood, including Elisabetta Canales of Italy, Lisa Snowden of modeling, and Stacy Keibler of wrestling fame. Everyone, from tabloids to fans, eagerly followed each romance, captivated by every detail. One example is his connection with Stacy Keibler. For over 2 years, they were a sight to behold, making public appearances together that led everyone to believe Clooney had found love. Their love, however, waned with time, purportedly due to divergent expectations for their relationship's trajectory. Was Clooney's marriage doomed from the start? George Clooney and Amal finally parted ways. But did you ever believe they would get married? The answer is so terrifying that that day may have already come. Why was a decision so tragic taken in private? You won't find out the awful truth behind this split unless you stay attentive to the very end. Part of Clooney's charm as Hollywood's bachelor was undoubtedly the beautiful women he dated. Equally crucial, though, was his resolute resolve to never be married again. Clooney made his distaste for marriage public following his 1993 divorce from actress Talia Balsam. Marriage was all he had to say when questioned about it in a 2006 interview with People magazine. "Only alone will tell. It wasn't my wedding." Due to Clooney's unwavering stance on marriage, it began to appear as an essential component of his identity. Regarding his brief marriage, he said, "I wasn't very good at it." And he went on to remark that he didn't feel the need to re-evaluate marriage in general. Both Clooney's avoidance of marriage and his notorious lack of desire to create a family of his own are well known. "The part of me that says I must do it isn't there," he joked. In the past, George Clooney seems to be the most content with his single existence. That was until something or someone occurred in 2013. Amal Alamuddin, a human rights lawyer with extraordinary intelligence, steps in. Their first encounter seems straight out of a romantic comedy. Amal wasn't someone Clooney met via a Hollywood connection or at a red carpet event. The truth is that she stayed at Clooney's Italian lakeside mansion at the invitation of a mutual acquaintance. He experienced an intense attraction to Amal during what Clooney referred to as the craziest thing. George Clooney, who seems to be forever single, may have found the one who might persuade him to end his lifestyle. All of a sudden, Clooney began to question his long-held views on marriage, family, and relationships. As Clooney continued, "Well, this is different on every level for me after Amal's arrival." He continued by saying that he had never been in a relationship like the one he had with Amal, and that their bond went deeper than simply making his life more interesting. a concept that had never occurred to Clooney before. The overpowering desire to put Amal's happiness and well-being first took him by surprise. In the few time since they had met, he had already begun formulating a great proposal scheme. Clooney officially proposed to Amal in April 2014, and the pair tied the knot in September 2014 in front of an international audience in Venice. Even more impressive than Clooney's impressive on-screen personalities is his enormous shift from the stereotypical Hollywood bachelor to a loving husband and, eventually, a parent. Without a doubt, having Amal in my life altered my perspective, as Clooney phrased it. Additionally, he spoke about how meeting Amal changed him. Everyone will have been astonished to hear that George Clooney's wife, Amal, is divorcing him. But what happened to make this snap decision? Was there a hidden breakup that no one saw coming? The truth behind their split will disclose disturbing information about their narrative, so be sure to watch until the very end. George's first divorce. Once upon a time, the individual who would later become known as George and Amal was just known as George. He was a young guy whose heart belonged to the actress Talia Balsam, and he was completely smitten with her. There was nothing typical about this Hollywood romance. It was in 1984 when George and Talia's on-stage chemistry began to flare in a community theater play. This is where the narrative goes from there. Since the very beginning, George has been completely and utterly enamored with her. Even though his career was just about to take off, this lovely actress seemed to put all of that to the side. George did not hesitate to fall in love at first sight. Her renowned parents, Martin Balsam and Joyce Van Patten, were the source of Talia's typical Hollywood magnetism, which she inherited from them. Talia was not just stunning and clever because of her parents. Therefore, it was not just her capabilities and attractiveness that gave George the impression that he had reached a gold mine. In addition to that, there was an aura that surrounded her. When George was just beginning his career in Hollywood, he was attempting to make a name for himself and was on the verge of achieving success. Having Talia by his side must have made him feel as if he were living the dream. Despite this, it did not last, as is the case with many young romances. When Talia was the one to put an end to things first, it was a great disappointment for George. At what point in your life did you last encounter a love that was so powerful that it seemed to transcend all of reality? After that, George, who was never one to give up on love, went on to date the actress Kelly Preston for a few years. It was a beautiful relationship. However, Talia continued to be a notion in his mind. It's possible that the attitude of "what if," or the understanding that things weren't quite done, was the source of his distress. When they got back in touch with one another a few years later, for whatever reason, George was not going to let Talia go so easily. He likely believed that if they were given a second chance, they needed to make an effort to make it work. As is characteristic of the Hollywood way, they hurriedly got married in Las Vegas after he proposed to her in the year 1989. It appears to be magical. Won't you agree? When I was younger, I was fully charmed with the situation, and I was entirely involved in it. I can only assume that they believed they were capable of accomplishing anything. The spell, on the other hand, did not last very long. As soon as the reality of life began to sink in, the exhilaration that had characterized the first few months subsided. The couple's marriage had barely been together for 3 years when it began to show indications of strain. George stated that it was a really difficult time, during which he had such a high level of stress that his ulcer started to leak. This was after the event. During that period, George was still working toward achieving fame while also balancing the responsibilities of marriage with his aspirations. Certainly, it appears to be rather severe. After getting married for the first time, dealing with health issues, and becoming famous at such a young age must have felt like a never-ending storm. There is a possibility that George was also filled with an underlying sense of unreadiness for it. After several years had passed, He indicated that he was the one who was responsible for their split. He also stated that he was not someone who ought to have been married, given the conditions of his life. Try to put yourself in the position of someone who is forced to say that they were the one responsible for everything completely breaking apart. It is not a simple undertaking. After taking a step back, Georg realized that he had failed to give Talia an opportunity, which was a difficult pill to swallow. His later hesitation to even consider getting married might be explained by the fact that he stated that he was inadequate at marriage. Where did George's affections go? It is the woman. It was revealed that George Clooney, the most famous bachelor in Hollywood, had his beliefs about the notion of the perpetual bachelor disturbed. In what ways did he transform? The appearance of Amal Alamuddin. In 2013, they were introduced to each other by a mutual acquaintance in George's stunning Italian villa on the banks of Lake Como, marking the beginning of their romantic adventure. Just another day of sunbathing at the Italian home, it appeared. Two intriguing and very bright people met for the first time that day, and their lives would never be the same. George would later admit that he had never met anybody exactly like Amal before they met. On the other hand, Amal wasn't your typical spellbound fan or Hollywood insider. She has been and will be an unstoppable force due to her impeccable reputation as a leading international human rights lawyer. The incredibleness of Amal's resume is something that everyone who knows her can confirm. Here, we are discussing an attorney who represents clients whose lives and liberty are in jeopardy in forums such as the International Criminal Court and the European Court of Human Rights. Reputable legal directories like Legal 500 and Chambers and Partners have lauded her as a great legal intellect and a first-class international lawyer. She has handled several high-profile cases, including those involving former Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, Egyptian-Canadian journalist Mohammed Fahmy, and Julian Assange's fight against extradition. And that's only the start. She is a constant voice for governments and individuals everywhere, taking on complex international problems when other lawyers would rather remain out of them. For what reason does she possess such immense power? Her sharp mind is the only thing that gives her art the balance and intensity it has. Amal embodies all of these qualities and more. She is unparalleled in her fervor, knowledge, and sense of fairness. An extra perk is her breathtaking attractiveness. Equally impressive in the fashion industry and courtrooms, Amal effortlessly grabs attention. Her colleagues have noted that she has an authoritative appearance when appearing before the court. Additionally, she possesses exceptional strategic acumen and is always one step ahead. Amal and her family fled Lebanon's civil war-torn capital of Beirut when she was a tiny kid. She began her stellar academic career as a young girl in the English county of Buckinghamshire. She was a full scholar at Oxford University, a valedictorian at St. Hugh's College, and a recipient of an award for entertainment law after transferring to New York University to earn her law degree. Consider it. On that scale, how would you place traits like intelligence, beauty, and ambition? But that's not all George and Amal have in common. They're both quite gorgeous. Their shared commitment to helping those in need has been the cornerstone of their cooperation. The Clooney Foundation for Justice, which they launched in 2016 as a joint enterprise, aims to promote justice in society via many channels, including schools and courts. Being a part of Hollywood's elite is cool, but speaking out for equality and human rights as an advocate is another ballgame. Beyond the realms of law and corporations, Amal's commitment knows no bounds. While Secretary General Kofi Annan was the UN envoy on Syria, she served as a senior advisor to the former president of the UN. She continues to tackle global human rights issues. On the other hand, George has a personal history of activism, particularly in Darfur and other war-torn places. They have a unique bond that few couples can match. And it all started when their jobs drew them closer together. With the help of George's loyal partner, Amal, the usual Hollywood spotlight suddenly appears more substantial, shedding light on crucial issues. To Amal, George is more than just an ally. His contribution to their mission to make a difference is crucial. Their union goes beyond mere public spectacle, not something that happens at parties for famous people. It's a genuine alliance with shared objectives. Discovering someone who shares your enthusiasm and determination was like striking gold. Truly, isn't that the stuff of dreams? The Clooneys are redefining what it means to be a power couple as they navigate life together. Together, they have not only captured the public's attention, but also given their lives meaning. Their story goes beyond the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, driven by empathy, activism, and a deep desire for justice. Their combined skills and dedication to making a difference are making a significant impact. George Clooney, maybe the most charming actor alive, didn't pop the question to Amal Alamuddin in a picturesque Hollywood backdrop. Rather than being a priceless recollection, their most cherished one became a series of near misses. Clooney painstakingly planned every element in an attempt to make the evening feel private and very personal. To set the mood, he put up a playlist of classic songs by his famous Aunt Rosemary Clooney. He chose one song in particular, "Why Shouldn't I?" to match the significance of the event. He had planned for the music to act as a trigger for his proposal, taking the symbolism of the evening beyond its aesthetic value. After a home-cooked dinner in this idyllic location, Clooney intended to surprise Amal. Amal, who had just gotten back from a visit to London, suggested they have takeout instead, which mildly surprised Clooney. His insistence that they enjoy the meal he had prepared with such care continued, though he was adamant that his careful preparation would save the night. So he kept on, even though this was only the beginning of his setback, with his grand scheme. The planned layout was magnificent, in his opinion. Behind Amal, Clooney stashed the ring in a drawer. He nonchalantly recommended that she search the drawer for a lighter once the right music started to play. Without a second thought, Amal opened it, like she always does, revealing the ring inside. Ignoring it immediately, she reasoned that it must have been left behind by a previous house guest. Clooney chose to handle it personally since he was so anxious and unsure of how to fix the problem. He knelt on one knee, his pulse pounding, and readied himself to speak, pouring out his love, his goals, and his desire to spend eternity with her. Instead of an exuberant yes or hug, Amal could only manage a series of gasps and "oh my gods" because she was so shocked. As Clooney considered how much longer he would be restricted to the position, sprawled out on his knee, it seemed as though time had stopped. From this point on, things grew funnier because Clooney's carefully selected music wasn't exactly sympathetic to his situation. The tune Clooney had envisioned for the perfect proposal would eventually be replaced, unbeknownst to him, by the fairly unromantic Goody Goody, which would accompany his long wait. Clooney spent a total of 25 minutes down there. He realized after some thought. Imagine that for a second. As the scene progressed, Clooney's knees effectively begged for pardon. His voice betrayed his increasing desperation as he told Amal, "I need an answer." He sincerely hoped for a yes, but he was desperate nonetheless. After that, he made his point with a dash of humor. Perfect introduction. "I'm 52 years old and ready to pop my hips any second now. Just give Amal a moment to get over her shock and say yes." Clooney must have felt an overwhelming wave of relief following what felt like an eternity of a proposal. A prominent Hollywood bachelor suddenly called it quits. They said "I do" after an engagement party that was even more understated than their Venice wedding in September 2014. Looking back on this scenario, even George Clooney's key life events may have taken a comedic tone. Maybe the real, unplanned moments, the awkward silences, and the laughter that followed made the proposal more memorable for their intrinsic faults, even though it wasn't the picture-perfect proposal he had anticipated. The unexpected turn of events in George Clooney's marriage has the media and the public buzzing. Why did Amal choose to terminate things so suddenly? What was going on behind the surface of their seemingly perfect lives? The details of this shocking split may shock you, so be sure to listen to the conclusion. Scrutiny and danger. How can you create a life with another person while still being yourself? The moment word of George Clooney and Amal Alamuddin's romance broke, the public's interest in the couple skyrocketed. Their dramatic romance captured the attention of viewers across the globe, and their wedding in Venice marked George's surprising transformation from long-term single dad to devoted husband. However, the captivating narrative that lies underneath the stunning photographs and glossy magazine covers is even more captivating. When both partners are so devoted to their careers, how can two renowned and rich people keep their relationships together? No matter how idyllic their lives seem on the outside, juggling celebrity, busy careers, and family life isn't simple. Amal Clooney, a renowned worldwide human rights lawyer, and George Clooney, a famous Hollywood actor, are often seen on opposite sides of the Atlantic. George performed for a year on Broadway in New York City after marrying Amal's, and they were married over 4,000 miles away. How do they manage to keep in touch with one another, given their busy schedules? For George and Amal, it's all about FaceTime. Our goal is to keep it short, as George put it once, showing how important it is to stay connected virtually, even when being physically close isn't possible. Many couples may relate to their primary strategy for bridging the distance, spending as much time together as possible and limiting those extended times apart. But love goes beyond the ordinary for the Clooneys. In it, they build a home for their family to live in peace, away from the prying eyes of the press. So, where do they live? The couple's primary residence is a castle dating back to the 18th century, situated on a massive 425-acre wine estate in Provence, France. Their impressive realty portfolio also includes properties in the US, UK, and Italy. Imagine for a second how tranquil it would be. Domaine Le Canadelle, the French mansion of the Clooneys, boasts a tennis court, a huge vineyard, an olive grove, an ornamental lake, expansive gardens, and a swimming pool. Their identical twins, Ella and Alexander, will like the space to play, run about, and just be kids without the continuous noise and scrutiny of city life. This estate is more than just a retreat. It's seeking $3 million. This place is safe and secure. Also, you can't assume that they're only interested in buying remote estates. Wishing for the privacy of George and Amal's children isn't enough. It is a task. Their efforts to protect Ella and Alexander from the constant attention that usually comes with being famous people's children have not been spared. "I don't want images of my kids," is something George has said rather openly, expressing his opinions on the matter. Nevertheless, his intentions extend much beyond a mere desire to shield his children from the grave criminals that he and Amal see frequently while on the job. Given that George works on politically charged projects and Amal tackles high-stakes human rights problems, they are both acutely aware of the risks. They would prefer not to put their children in harm's way by letting them work in an unsafe environment. In reaction to the COVID-19 epidemic, the Clooneys significantly modified their lifestyle. During the outbreak, for instance, Alexander and his family remained home due to his asthma. George has also shifted his career focus from directing to acting because he fears the longer separations that would be required and the potential uprooting of their children if they were to pursue the latter. The importance of George's family life is undeniable. It appears that this shared commitment is what ultimately decides things. They make quite a dynamic combination. Each member brings enthusiasm, drive, and achievement to the table. They are, nevertheless, parents who would give their children the world if they could. George and Amal have built an extraordinary existence for themselves by fully embracing their private and public selves. Keeping a marriage and family a secret isn't only doable, it's essential. Their well-organized family time and commitment to humanitarian activity show that it can be incredibly fulfilling. Given this, how can they maintain a sense of groundedness despite their fame and fortune? It seems like a blend of love, shared values, and commitment to something bigger. Aside from being a renowned couple, George Clooney and Amal Alamuddin are extraordinary, a family living an unconventional existence. The Clooneys are navigating it with purpose, solitude, and a pinch of classic romanticism, the very thing that strained their marriage. Although the world views George Clooney and Amal Alamuddin's marriage as a picture-perfect fairy tale, the couple recently faced an unforeseen obstacle that damaged even their close-knit relationship. In light of this, you may be wondering what could weaken the bond between George and Amal. An open interview soon revealed the couple's darkest, most secretive secrets, forcing them to confront the unique challenges of their public relationship. A shocking revelation. By giving an interview, George may have unintentionally disclosed some personal details about his relationship with Prince Harry. Since they both handle the demands of fame in ways that the average person can't even begin to imagine, it's clear that Prince Harry and George get along famously. More than that, though, George said that Harry had confided in him privately on the challenges of royal duties and the relentless public scrutiny. And these were no ordinary complaints. George had already been informed by Prince Harry that he wanted to live his life away from the spotlight and the royal family. Imagine the widespread public indignation, curiosity, and criticism that would follow. Prioritize considering the impact on Amal. After her husband exposed a friend's deepest secrets to the world, she and Harry found themselves in a precarious situation. Despite being a public concern, the issue swiftly became very personal. Amal relies on privacy, both in her work and her personal life. She is a respected human rights lawyer. Being private isn't just something people do, it's a core value, especially in her world. When George broke that rule by telling his buddy intimate information about their problems, it became clear that trust was eroding between them. Was George less distinct as a result of his dual roles as a public personality and a private confidant? Potentially at risk as well is the privacy of their loved ones. The impression he gave Amal was that he was at ease revealing Prince Harry's secrets. As devoted parents to Ella and Alexander, their twin children, it is of utmost significance to them. Their children have been shielded from the spotlight by their tremendous efforts. "I do not want photographs of my children," was George's exact statement to the press. George worries about the safety of his family if they are subjected to public scrutiny, as his career involves significant hazards. It seemed inevitable, nevertheless, that people would pay attention to a debate over this tragedy. George supposedly received an ultimatum from Amal, who is known for her candor, demanding that he finally set boundaries with the media. The short-lived treachery of Prince Harry was just the beginning of her ambitions. It included providing a stable environment for her loved ones, away from the constant drama that accompanies disclosures to the public eye. George had a turning point at this point. Was being so laid back with the press worth endangering his personal life? These were tough questions he had to confront himself. Did he manage to keep his marriage and friendships intact? He re-evaluated his degree of public transparency and the proper boundaries to set after receiving Amal's ultimatum. George and Amal paused to reflect after everything that had transpired. Even though they've been in the limelight before, this time they learned how challenging it is to balance public attention with private privacy. Famous couples often face the issue of keeping their public persona intact while closely preserving their private life. When it came to resolving these issues, George and Amal were quite certain. Despite how perfect it all seemed, all they needed was to improve their communication and remember their common convictions. The lesson was not simple to learn. You might be surprised to hear that Amal has decided to part ways with George Clooney. Something has recently turned the tables on George. What caused the breakup of Hollywood's golden couple? Throughout this segment, you must maintain complete focus on the screen. Keep watching for the whole story. George Clooney is taking extreme steps to save his marriage for reasons other than his anxieties and his devotion to Amal. Petrified of being old, being alone, and losing the vibrant, young friend he loves so dearly, George is unwilling to take any chances following a tumultuous marriage of 10 years and their recent move to France. Amal has found it equally challenging. But what exactly is going on? I mean, who could blame them? They just moved to Provence. After all, a famous couple may like the peaceful countryside, beautiful vineyards, and plenty of privacy. But instead of bringing them closer together, this shift has driven a wedge between them. Their relationship evolved into one of roommates rather than lovers as their schedules got busier. Imagine uprooting your life and moving halfway across the world, only to discover that you are emotionally distant from the person you had wanted to spend the rest of your life with. George and Amal are both in their 60s. As a result, the generational divide is starting to show. George can't seem to shake the feeling that something is wrong. The twist in the plot is that he has additional problems than emotional distance. The once dashing George is now ashamed of his appearance and his advanced years. He was previously one of Hollywood's most alluring leading men. Who would have thought that an assured performer like Clooney could struggle with self-doubt? Insecurity. George Clooney, one of the most charming gentlemen in Hollywood, is famous not only for his film career, but also for his admirable marriage with Amal Alamuddin. But over time, when the halo of love is gradually challenged by the reality of life, he cannot help but wonder, is he losing the most important woman in his life? The prospect of losing Amal, a talented human rights lawyer, full of enthusiasm for her career, makes George reflect on his existence. At nearly 60 years old, he is no longer the young man he used to be, while Amal still retains her elegant beauty and attractive demeanor. She is an intelligent, ambitious, strong woman, a partner who is not easy to accompany if the man beside her cannot keep up with her pace. George probably understands that better than anyone. He knew he couldn't let the distance between them grow, because if he didn't act quickly, one day he would realize that Amal had moved on without him, and so he tried harder than ever to warm up their relationship. He spared no effort to make his wife feel loved and appreciated. He made the most of classic romantic gestures, from planning surprise lunches in idyllic locations and long evening walks under the sunset to small but meaningful details like preparing Amal's breakfast with fresh croissants and a cup of coffee by the bed. He wanted every moment with her to be memorable. But would these efforts be enough to erase the increasingly obvious distance between them? Because the issue was not just about romance or temporary sweetness. It was also about facing fears and learning to adapt to a new phase in life. Amal's career is still going strong, taking her all over the world on important missions. She doesn't stop, doesn't slow down, whether George is there or not. And perhaps that's what worries him the most. He knows he can't change his age, but can he find a way to fit into his wife's busy life without feeling like he's just a small part of her world? One thing is for sure, though, George has no intention of giving up. If that means rearranging all